good day and welcome once again to class. Our third in the series of project management classes. I welcome you specially to this class. My name is Banjo Babatunde Amos. Please kindly visit our social media handles on YouTube and Telegram to access more of our professional educational materials, and then reach out to us through our facilitators for your comments, inquiries, and whatever contributions you have about the trainings. Thank you very much, and you're welcome. By now, I'm very sure that you are more than convinced that you are in the best place. Today, in PMP Class 3, we are going to be looking into project cost management. Project cost management. But before we delve into project cost management, in our previous class, we looked into project scope management. We opened up the processes in project scope management, and also we considered facility management and the prospect of being a facility manager on behalf of an organization. Welcome once again to our project cost management class 3 of our PMP program. My name is Banjo Babatunde Amos, and I welcome you specially. Now, having the good understanding, when we opened up our knowledge areas, remember we said cost is one of the key project constraints. It's also a member of the project knowledge areas, and thence there's a need for us to properly manage our cost on the project and be able to identify the prospects of cost. Before I delve fully in iterative project management, there are two edges to costs. We have the budget edge and we have the cost edge. Now, you must be able to identify. In project management, we just keep saying cost. But at a particular time, you must be able to identify if the cost we are talking about is the cost edge or the budget edge. What do we mean? Now, if you are going to charge a project, you're going to charge it at a particular cost. But the reality of the issue is that that particular cost is not what it will cost you to complete the project. Thus, we have the budget edge. The budget is the actual amount you spend in completing the entire project, or you will spend in completing the entire project. Let's say, for example, when you plan your cost, you realize that what you will be needing after every estimation you have done, you realize that you're going to be spending maybe 400 million naira. Then you conclude that, okay, by the time we spend 450 million, maybe due to inflation, we are still going to cover it up. You are not going to charge that project at 450 million because you are going to make money. There's going to be your management reserve in the total cost you are going to be charging. So the amount you'll be spending in reality is your budget, which is 450 million. Then peradventure you charge the project for 550. That 550 is now your cost edge. So, but in project management, we don't separate budget from cost. We just keep saying cost. But by what you see or what you are dealing with at that particular time, you should be able, as a project manager, to know if that's the budget side of the cost or the cost side of cost. Thank you. Having good understanding of that, what else are we looking at under project cost management? The processes. Now, project cost management is a series of processes involved in identifying, documenting, analyzing, and also implementing the use of finance on the project life to achieve success on the project life. Now, the process of identifying, documenting, analyzing, and implementing the use of finance, the use of money or financial resource on the project life to achieve the project expectations is project cost management. Away from that, under project cost management, we have basically four processes. Four processes under project cost management. Number one, plan cost management. Remember, in our previous classes, I've mentioned to you that we will get to a stage whereby we will not be talking about the inputs, outputs, and tools and techniques again. So we'll just discuss what plan cost management is, and then we'll have a good understanding. Then after I open up all the processes under project cost management, then I'll show you some of the key tools and techniques that maybe peradventure you are using the lecture notes, you might not be able to easily understand. So I'll bring it to you, and then we'll round up for project cost management. Plan cost management. These are the processes that we use to identify, document, validate, and control the financial requirements of a project life. So we want to identify, document, validate, and control the financial. We determine the set of strategies we are going to be using to identify, document, validate, and control the financial requirements of a project life. Now, if we want to talk about, for every process, there are inputs, there are tools and techniques, and their output. We want to talk about inputs for plan cost management. We will be mentioning things like the project management plan with the human resource register, risk register, enterprise environmental factor, and so on and so forth. When we talk about tools and techniques, we have end value management, we have expert judgment, and so on and so forth. Then our output will now be project cost management plan. Project cost management plan. Number two, I just said that to show you that you need, as far as you're understanding each of the processes, you need to also know their input, the tools and techniques, and the output. That makes it easy for you to show the relationship between the process. The next step is to estimate your cost. Estimate cost. Cost estimation is a process whereby we determine on statistical tools and analytical tools to determine the actual amount we'll be using to get everything we need on the project. Let me put it systematically. Estimate cost is the process by which we determine the cost. The cost for the completion of the project life, considering the different levels of work, the different tasks that we have to complete on the project life. We will determine the cost for each level and then estimate the overall cost. Now look at it practically. If you see a building contractor or even a bricklayer that is very experienced, and you meet him and ask him that, okay, this my land, I want to build a 3-bedroom flat on this land, how much do you think it will cost me? You will find out that the person will give you a particular price that at the end of the day, by the time you finish building the house, the figure will not be over exceeded or under exceeded. It will be very close to the actual amount you will be spending. This means that from experience, these people have already imbibed the tools needed to estimate the cost for their own specific field. Remember, project management enters all fields, not just building. But I'm using it as an example. It takes experience or expert judgment. These are some of the key tools and techniques you'll be using to analyze your cost. For example, if you didn't study anything related to construction and you have not practiced anything in construction and you get a construction project, then definitely to estimate cost will not be easy for you unless you consult. But if you are experienced, you will have already developed the right set of skills to estimate your cost. That's why you cannot remove expertise from the successful completion of a good project, because you will always require that experience, that over time successful experience to achieve results on a project life. So this is a process whereby we put we analyze the overall cost that we will need to spend on the entire project life, considering the different variable tasks on the project life. Number 3, we have determined budget. Determine budget. Determine budget is the process by which we put a price tag on the project line. Having estimated what it will cost us. Remember, I told you earlier that this cost is not what we will charge the project for. If you have estimated your cost and you say, okay, from my calculation, my permutations, my predictions, I'm spending 400 million. You will not even consider this 400 million as your estimated cost. You will now add your reserve and management contingency and management reserves to this 400 million. So you can say, okay, 450 million. Now, when you come to determine budget, you consider factors like risk, like enterprise environmental factor, human resource register, and then you see where there can be alterations to this money, and then you add it to it. Then you add what your layman contractors will call workmanship, where that's your management reserve, the money that is meant for you as profit on the project. So this is where we put a price tag on the project life. We put a price tag on a project line. Put a price tag on the project line. That takes us to the final process under project cost management, which is control cost. Now here we want to evaluate the performance of cost. We want to evaluate the performance of cost and control the impact of its performance, on the project life. What are we doing here? We are simply checking if our cost is performing well or if our cost is failing. Peradventure our cost is performing well, then we keep validating our cost. Peradventure our cost is not performing well, then we need to adjust some other variables and consider the influence of cost on them to bring the performance of cost up. So we control cost. So these are the 4 basic processes under project cost management. Now, having good understanding of the processes, like I promised, I'm going to be showing you some of the tools and techniques that are specific to project cost management that you will need to understand. And the first I'll be bringing to you is what we refer to as the end value management. The end value management. This is a comparison tool. Remember, we will estimate cost. A comparison tool whereby we want to ensure that what we have earmarked that we will spend at a particular stage of a project is what we have achieved, or whether we have not even achieved it. So it's a comparison tool. Is a project cost management tool that we use to examine if cost is performing. Let's say, for example, let's consider, our analogy is construction now, but it's not restricted to construction. Let's say, for example, we say by the time we complete foundation for this construction project, we should have achieved foundation at, let's say, 200 million naira. Let's say 200 million naira. And then when we now completed foundation, we found out that we have spent 310 million naira. It means that our cost is failing. So this earmarked value, which is 200 million, is our planned value. Is what we refer to as our planned value, PV. Is our planned value, PV. The actual amount we now spend by the time we get to this stage of the construction is our end value. End value. EARNED, end value, which we refer to as EV. So we have 2 indices that we can use to determine if cost is performing or not. The first one is what we call the schedule variance. The schedule variance, SV, which is equals to your PV minus your EV. Your SV, your schedule variance, is equals to your planned value minus your end value. So therefore, for example, if we say we are going to spend 200 million to complete the foundation, and at completion of foundation, we find out that we spend 195 million. That means 200 million, you know that your cost is performing. And at the same time, if we say we are going to spend 200 million and we have spent 310 million, then we know that our cost is failing. So is a cost evaluation tool that we use to evaluate the performance of cost. Now also we have what we call the cost aggregation tool. When we say cost aggregation, what do we mean? Now under cost aggregation, we go and use our work breakdown structure. Remember, our work breakdown structure breaks down the entire project work into smaller and manageable tasks. So having considered our work breakdown structure, maybe we have divided the entire project line into, okay, let's use construction for an example. Clearing of sites, perimeter fencing, foundation, laying of body bricks, linted, okay, roofing, external aesthetics, internal aesthetics, and then finishing. Now, having considered that we have broken the entire project line into all these aspects, we will now evaluate. That means we will now do our cost estimation for each of this task. So we allot values. Let's say here is 2 million, here is 3 million. We allot values. Then we add the entire figure together. This is a tool we use for cost estimation, estimate cost. That's process 3, an important tool that we use for estimate cost. So we, having determined the amount we will spend for each of these segmented tasks, we'll now add it up, aggregate, we'll add it up and get a rigid value to complete the entire. Remember, we'll still consider, when we want to now determine budget, we'll still consider our management reserve and our contingency reserve. So somebody is asking, what is even management reserve? What is contingency reserve? Now, contingency reserve is the cost we set aside for the manifestation of risk. You know, under risk management, we say we have known unknowns and unknown unknowns. We have two types of risk: pre-identified risk and unidentified risk. For example, if you are doing a construction project, you already know that maybe during a rainy season, you already know that there's risk that rain will stall work. That's a pre-identified risk. We already know that it is possible for that to happen. The cost that we reserve for this kind of risk is what we call the contingency reserve. Contingency reserve. Now, in project management, there's nothing like workmanship, but there's how you can bury your workmanship in what we call your management reserve. Your management reserve. And under this management reserve is the amount we set aside for unidentified risk. That means risk that we might not be able to identify before we start work that might manifest during the project life. So now, both for contingency and management reserve, your profit is embedded in these two. Now, because you have pre-identified risk and you have allotted contingency reserve, that's an amount to suffice for such risk if they manifest. Your duty as a project manager is to ensure that you put in apparatus that will not allow this pre-identified risk to manifest. And then furthermore, for you to have the full of the management reserve or the optimum value from the management reserve, you also make sure that no unidentified risk comes up. That means at the point where you are planning your contingency reserve, you make sure that you try as much as possible to identify all possible risks that can manifest during the project life. Now remember, no matter how much you identify, there's likelihood that a risk will come up that will not be covered by your pre-identified risk. So that is why you cannot just say, I have my contingency reserve, don't worry, I know. You have to have your management reserve, because that is where the bulk of your own profit will come from. Now, your contingency reserve for identified risk, your management reserve for unidentified risk. Now, to maximize profit for yourself, you have to be able to control the impact of risk to as low as possible. To as low as possible. So that is cost aggregation, contingency reserve, management reserve, and value management. We also have what we call bottom-up estimation. Bottom-up estimation is just like cost aggregation, but in this aspect, we analyze the task of a project from the beginning to the end in an ascending order. We break the project work into different sections from the beginning to the end in an ascending order, and then we allot cost to each of these broken down sections. So that's that about bottom-up estimation. I'm very sure that you have rigid knowledge of project management course by now, and then you can make do of the lecture notes. You can also visit our social media handles on YouTube and Telegram to get more information, more professional educational materials to improve your knowledge. You can also reach out to our facilitators to get information. That will be that for our third class in project management professional, and I know that you have really enjoyed the class. We look out to doing more with you. Thank you very much. My name is Banjo Babatunde Amos.